G'day, my name's Shane. In this tutorial I'm going to be speaking about PHP functions, how you can use them to minimize code redundancy and clean up your code essentially. When you're working in a large application, sometimes there's a small piece of code that you need to use over and over and over again. It's much easier to write a function that can do that repeatedly, and you only have to write the code once, have it sit in a little file nice and tucked away, and you can call that function whenever you like, and you only use less than one line of code, as opposed to pasting your 100 lines of code everywhere all throughout your application. Very sloppy, not considered to be very good practice, and can cause lots of issues if you ever have to modify it. So let's get started. I'm gonna demonstrate a couple of simple examples, and we're gonna do some more advanced functions at a later date in some of my later tutorials. Okay, so first function I'm going to create. Now we use the function keyword to kick this off. We're gonna go function is equal. Okay, now open brackets, just like you were to call a function. Like in the past, we've used the size of function where we pass through an array. In this case, we get to specify what the user will send into our array. Okay, so in this case, we're going to say val1 and val2 separated by commas. Okay, that's important. So each value will have the comma in between, and when they pass through those values, their variables might be anything. They could have any name, or it could be any type of data, but they're gonna come through and be assigned to these variables that we've set. So we know what they're called, and we can work with them locally within our function. So we're going to create an if statement. We're going to say if $val1. Now, previously, when we spoke about if statements in the fourth tutorial, we used the is equal operator with 2 equal signs. Now, the difference between that and 3 equal signs, which I'm going to teach you, is that 3 equal signs cares about the data type as well. Normally PHP doesn't care about data types, and true will be equal to 1, false will be equal to 0, but in this case, we want to make sure the data types of the 2 values sent through are also the same. So they can't send through false and 0 and have them return as equal. We don't want that. We want to say they're not in fact equal. Okay, so we're going to use those 3 equal signs. You might not use those very often, but in this case we need them. Okay, they're very useful. Okay, so we're gonna close those curved brackets there. Don't forget that. Open your block of code, and we are going to use a new keyword again. So this is another new one for you. So we've got function and now return. I'm going to say return true. So what that means is this function's done. So we've done all we need to do. They're equal. Great. Return true, and that will essentially tell whatever called this function that yep, it was true. They're equal. Proceed with whatever you need to do. And we're going to say else, and obviously if they're not equal, well, we're returning false. Okay, that's our function done. Okay, very easy function, very straightforward, but that's it. That's all we need to worry about for that at the moment. So now let's do an echo. So we're just going to echo the output of this function to the page, and we're just going to have a look and see what happens. So let's perhaps pass through true and true, and we'll see whether those values are equal. Okay, so I'm just going to refresh this, and we get a 1. Fantastic, that's the same as true. Okay, so that's good. That's good. All right, so we know it's working to a degree. Let's send through a false, and we'll see what happens. Nothing. Okay, false will actually output as nothing on your web page. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Let's say we send through false and 0, which would normally be equal, but because we've got those 3 equal sign operators, that's actually going to give us nothing. So that's false. That's good. If we were to change that so it doesn't care about data types, and we'll save it, that'll actually return true. So we want to make sure that we leave those 3 equal signs so that if they are different data types, we're not getting a true response. Okay, so now how we can use this in our application practically, because obviously we're not going to output ones to the user. It's not going to mean anything to them. we're gonna use another if statement. We're gonna say if is equal, and let's say let's have fruit 1, banana, just as an example. Fruit 2 equals apple. Cool. If is equal fruit 1, fruit 2, echo the fruits are equal. Great. And then we're going to say else, echo, you guessed it, the fruits are not equal. Just like that. And we're going to save that, run that, boom. Fruits are not equal. Well, yep, we knew that. Apple and banana, not the same. Let's say we compare fruit 1 with fruit 1. So banana and banana, well, the fruits are equal. Fantastic. So another thing we can do, and this is new. I didn't teach you guys this in our 4th tutorial, but you can actually check whether a value, whether something's false. So we can actually do a shortcut. And if I put a little exclamation mark in there, it means we want this to be false. So we don't want these to be equal. So if they're not equal, then we're actually going to say the fruits are, well, in this case, I'm going to swap these around. The fruits are not equal, and the fruits are equal. So here, boom, fruits are equal, but if I change that to a 2, so here, banana and apple, okay, so we're gonna check whether, we're gonna make sure they're not equal in this case, okay, because of that exclamation mark. So if that returns as false, which it's going to, because we're sending through banana and apple, it's gonna give us false. That's good. That exclamation mark means we want false. Then it's gonna execute this block, okay. So that should tell us the fruits are not equal, just like that. This this little shortcut is the exact same as saying that. That works the same way, equal to false. Okay? Or in this case, well, because we're returning a false value, we can use a strict comparison if we'd like, because we're returning false like that. So that's fine as well. So they're actually the same. So just a little trick, you know, sometimes you want something to fail. In that case, you know, we want to make sure they're not the same, you know. You might want to make sure that an email address doesn't already exist on a database. You know, maybe you're new with SQL and you haven't worked out unique columns yet or anything like that, or indexes. That's fine. You might just have a little bit of code in there just to say, oh, well, you know, does it exist? Or more a matter of, does it not exist? Then great, run the code. If not, then do something else. You know, so sometimes it's up to you. You just might want it to be false instead of true. So that's what that exclamation mark will allow you to do. So that's really useful. Okay, so I'm gonna create a new function now. I'm gonna call this show message. Okay, this is very similar to one that I worked on with a gentleman in a website that I developed recently. So function show message, I'm going to call the first value content, and the second one's going to be type. Okay, so we're going to have 2 different message types. Okay, we're going to have and I'm going to use a switch statement with this, okay? So again, if you haven't seen my tutorial on selection statements, look at my PHP tutorial 1.4, and that will explain it in a little bit more detail. So we're going to say switch $type here, case. Now we're going to have 2 different types. We're going to have success. Okay, so this is a success message. We are going to echo, in this case, span style equals color, green, font weight, bold, and here, I'm going to say just like this. Okay, So it's just going to say success, colon, and then our content. Oops, I usually like to do it like that. And it's just going to echo that to the page. Really straightforward, and we're going to break that. Now let's say case failure. Okay. I'm just going to copy and paste this, and we're going to make that red, and we're going to say failure. And we're going to have the message there. This is a really simple message. On a more advanced website, you might use something like, for example, you might have like a div element with a nice, you know, like light green background with like a single pixel dark green border, for example, maybe with a little icon. To say, you know, success. It might have like a tick or something like that. This is just an example again. So there we're going to check whether success or failure and output a message accordingly. Now here, say we go, oops, we don't need to echo because it's going to echo for us. We'll say show message, you have registered. Okay, so we're just going to let the user know they've registered, and we're going to say that this is a success message. Alright, so save that and run. There we go. So success, you have registered. Okay, so that's done that for us. That's really nice. Let's say we call it a failure message. Okay, so we modify that. You have not registered. There we go. So that's done that for us. So that's really useful. Something we can do, say we want to assume by default that every message is a success. What we can actually do is we can actually set a default value for this variable, just like this. Oops, not failure, success. There. So what that means is we don't actually require that value to be set when it's being called. So, you know, sometimes if you can put success in if you want, but you don't need to now. If you don't enter it, it's just going to assume that your message was a success. Okay, so just like that. So that'll actually set a default value. So if it doesn't receive one, it's going to set type to the value of success. Very common practice, particularly with functions that have a lot of options. Sometimes the options are optional, so you don't need to actually specify a value. In this case, we're going to make type optional, and it will automatically assume that something succeeded. Okay, very useful. Okay, so that concludes this tutorial for now. We're going to be using a lot of functions at a later date again, so do keep that in mind. And in the upcoming tutorials, I'm going to be looking at, well, particularly the next tutorial, compartmentalizing your code into separate files. So we're going to look at including different files into our main script. Which will be very useful when creating a larger website. So you don't have, you know, 30,000 lines of code in a single file. You can split that up amongst 30 or 40 files so that they're in nice bite-sized chunks, a lot easier for you to edit, and you can give them appropriate names, and essentially it'll make the job of the PHP parser a lot easier as well. So it doesn't have to compile all this code that it's not actually running. Yeah, so we're going to look at that, and it should make your future websites a lot tidier and easier to manage, particularly if you need to work with other people. Anyway, thank you very much for your time, and I'll see you in the next one.